Psychically, I'm very well endowed.
I want to know what you're thinking. There are some things you can't hide. I want to know what you're feeling. Tell me what's on your mind.
Hey there, this is Cooper from Telepathic Bunny Comics. Welcome in, welcome in. I already got a couple comments over here. Mr. Genuine Comics, hey. A mysterious individual says, hey back. And how are you, Shadowpunk? There you go. All right. Speaking of which, the man, the myth, the legend. Ta-da! There you go. All right. All right, let's get a bigger view here. Oh, there we go. Ta-da! There we
I
go.
like the smaller view myself.
Oh, you like the bit? Oh, okay. All right. Is that better?
Well, can I tell you why?
Why?
Because it makes the camera quality look better when it's smaller.
Oh, okay. Okay,
It doesn't look fuzzy.
Yeah, I know you're a real stickler for everything being high def and everything.
It's one thing to look at. that's just an opinion about, just like the 3D thing, right? It's really just an opinion. Right. Quite honestly, you know.
Well, we're going to wade through a little bit of this today. I have another guest that may be appearing. Actually, let me make sure I sent him the link. I did that last Friday. I thought I'd sent the guy the link, and he's like, do I have a link? I was like, oh shit, you don't. So yeah, he's got the link. All right.
Okay.
Hoping Bayonet and Ricochet is able to make it here.
He'd be a good one to have on also, you know.
Anyway, oh yeah, you two are the tops that I know of. I mean, personally. You know, I have access to. I'm sure there's other people that are in it, but you are the two that I know personally. So hopefully he'll be able to make it.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
So you know, the thing is though that the whole 3D thing. I couldn't tell you how long ago comic book artists started using 3D to make it easier. I couldn't tell you that number, but I'll bet you that it's been a long time. I'll bet you it's been 20 years. If I had to guess, you know, 20 for a long time, people, and before that, it's been photos, you know.
Photos and models. I can't remember which famous artist it was I saw, but he had like this collection, this incredible collection of like models of things that he used for like references.
Oh wow!
But he would actually use physical media to for his references.
Right.
I think it was I'm thinking of Alex Ross.
He does for sure. He does for sure. Yeah. I mean, it would make sense, right?
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you why. Even if you didn't know that he uses 3D, physical things, photos and whatnot, his artwork tells you it does. Right. Yeah. Because when you do artwork that is out of just your imagination only,
right,
it's got a really cool look to it. Right.
Yeah.
And but it's like a surreal, this doesn't really fit reality kind of thing. Alex Ross has got crazy perspective and the lighting is really nice. It lines up with what you would think would be real.
Right.
I would bet that it isn't always real, but often it is. And So I where do you draw the line between what you think is acceptable and what you think is too far, right?
Well, I remember when he like when Marvels came out, I remember it like shook the industry
big time.
That there's a lot of debating over because it's photorealistic, and which completely totally changed like my world. But there's a lot of people I remember just like absolutely like he is Satan, kill the witch, burn the witch. I mean, I remember that reaction happening. Hey there, everyone. What's up, Wookie?
Hey,
I can't do the Wookie thing. He does it perfectly, but
I'll give you a good example. Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So the Alex Ross thing is really excellent because he is a premier comic book artist, top notch, right?
Oh yeah.
And So and also he's very prolific. He has so much stuff. Okay, so he's not spending all that time drawing windows.
Oh, definitely not.
Right?
Definitely not.
And figuring out perspective on the windows. He's not doing that. And you know who else did that too?
Who?
Okay, so illustrators from back in the day, they had this technique where they would use a projector.
Mm-hmm.
They would get a photo and they would project the photo on the canvas.
They called it light boxing, didn't they? Wasn't it called
light boxing? Would be on the actual, they'd be an actual light box.
Right.
But the bigger way, if you're going to do a big painting, you would have like an old time school projectors.
Right. Overhead projector.
Overhead projectors, right? So people the best example of this is Norman Rockwell.
Right.
I studied him in school and we understood how he did what he did. And under no circumstances would anybody ever say Norman Rockwell can't draw and he has to use that thing to make it work.
Right.
That's dumb. Okay. And by the way, the quality of his drawings when he uses that projector, most people can't do that because he's such a good drawer.
Well, what he would do though is he would take that and then he would do something utterly and completely human with it, and he would add there was a visceralness to it. What he created with it,
probably,
and I mean, he took that. He had that photorealism, but he just did something really beautiful with it, because there's such a humanity imbued in his images, even though he started out from that place. Speaking of that place, beautiful. Speaking of beautiful, Mr. Whiskey and Bayonet, what's up, dude?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey. No problem.
So it really brings up the whole thing. And I'll tell you what my line in the sand is.
Okay. All right.
My line in the sand is the people who buy the books.
Right.
If they look at a certain book and they go, that doesn't look what I want to buy.
Yeah.
Okay, then the proof is right there. Okay. And if people love the way certain book looks,
right.
That's all there is to it. There's another issue involved. The other issue involved is that long term is that a good look for indie comics.
Right.
Right. And this is what Ethan brought up in some of his trash casts, right?
Yeah. Well, we'll go into that, but let me welcome Mr. Whiskey to the stream. Hey, Whiskey.
Hello.
We were talking about using photorealistic, 3D elements in your art. We started with Alex Ross, also talking about Norman Rockwell.
Did you mean Toth? Alex Toth?
Alex Toth.
I didn't bring up Alex Toth, but
I didn't. I don't even know who that is. Believe it or not,
Toth is
he created Super Friends.
Oh, okay.
He's one of the classic artists.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I need to look into him.
He's a big deal.
Yeah, I need to look into him. Actually, I've never heard him come up. That's really odd.
He did a series of he was a big fan of doing planes and sports cars and all that kind of stuff. And he did a series called One for the Road, I think.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It's been a while. Gemma's familiar with it as like somebody like Randy or like Russ Leach or whoever who introduced me to this stuff. But he did use photo reference in his stuff. Now I'm not sure if he did like a 1-to-1 trace.
Yeah,
but he probably did. A lot of the old of the old cats did. I know that Wally Wood did for certain. He had that famous quote. Did you guys cover that quote from Wally Wood yet? They'll cut up and paste out.
No, what was it?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know off the heart. I'll find it.
Oh no, I can find it right quick. Yeah, it's a famous quote. You're absolutely right. I need to include that.
Photo reference. Is that the thing?
They all did back in the day. They all used photo reference. I used. They all copy and pasted. They all traced. Anything to save time. They didn't do it all the time, but if they could, they to would. Save time.
By the way, a good example of this too.
Okay, this is the quote. Mm-hmm. Let me give the quote right quick. Okay. Never draw anything you can copy. Never copy anything you can trace. Never trace anything you can cut out and paste up. So there you go.
Well, he's probably
Wally didn't give a shit. Wally just said, "Get it done." It didn't matter. Doesn't matter how you get it done.
Can we put that in context?
Sure. Yeah.
The context would be deadlines are around the corner. Get going, and this is how we get it done. That would be the context. Like, for example, everybody's different in Comicsgate, right? So maybe some people spend more time and they don't have that kind of a deadline kind of thing where, they don't have publishers breathing down their necks, right? So that would be the thing.
Right. Well, to be honest, maybe if they treated it like there was a publisher breathing down their neck, we would be in better place than we are right now. Just saying.
Maybe for
because
some people,
Image. Well, that first generation of Image, once they got out of the Marvel and DC system, they basically started missing deadline after deadline,
right?
And after that initial rush of great comics, I remember going months, and it's like, where's the next Youngblood? Where's the next Cyber whatever, I can't remember the name of it. But
by the way, Neff is in the chat, and he's already making snarky comments.
Yeah, there you go.
That's funny.
Of course, it's Neff.
How clever.
Neff is Neff.
You can't help it.
Much, there you go. I don't know. You name yourself Nefarious. You kind of have a villainous thing.
As a matter of fact, he has to do it.
Anyway.
If he was like normal, it would be a disappointment.
Anyway, speaking of 3D assets, I love Bayonet's.
Ominous eye.
Got a 3D asset right there. Sorry, go ahead, Shadowpunk. I'm sorry.
So I mean, I would say just for the people that are in the chat now, my personal opinion is that the people who buy the books should decide what their artwork they like and what they don't like, right? Is it a bad look long term? I would probably say if you don't make great artwork, it is a bad look, right? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and that's not you should not do that anymore. And that's kind of how you figure it out. I think
it's like you were talking about Norman Rockwell, like the end product. It's all about the end product, and he did use an overhead projector as you talked about, which some people would consider a shortcut. Some people would consider cheating in a way, but then he like overlaid it with this great humanity, these great like organic moments. He may have took a picture of a barbershop quartet and then overlaid it, but what he did with that barbershop quartet, the facial expressions, that's
where you would get the character in the vivacity, if that's a word, like the spark in every character you have to catch them right when they're like on lit up, right? And that's very hard to do. They did it like in sculpture, like in Michelangelo or Botticelli.
Right.
They wouldn't have that kind of thing where they would go, we don't want you to catch somebody when they're like this. We want you to catch somebody the moment they're about to say it, right? And that's super difficult to do.
Yeah.
And so Norman Rockwell did that, and it's you can't make that up.
Well, Jack Kirby did that. Jack Kirby's philosophy was he's catching moments in time, and so he would try to make something dynamic every single panel.
Right.
And that's why his comics seem to move. I mean, I don't know if Jack Kirby, the comics that he produced always had such a pace to them. You know, and maybe it had something to do with the fact that he was such a fast worker. But you see that like Jose Garcia's work,
right? There's momentum to everything.
Everything's dynamic, and it kind of moves you along through the comic at this pacing. And it's as for all of his foibles, I would say that Liefeld is that way. Liefeld and had that movement, you know. You know, as simplistic as it may have been at times, over-rendered, you know.
So
ugly.
Go ahead.
Anyway, there's nothing wrong with using photographic reference. Almost all your favorite artists to draw cityscapes use photographic perspective. Right. Using 3D object assets like rendering a couch or background object, tracing it because you suck at art is entirely different.
Well,
that is the point. That's a good point.
That's not entirely accurate. Okay, because I'm assuming that anybody that's making a comic book can draw a couch. Can we agree on that?
Okay.
Is that okay? That's
you would
not
hope.
a stretch, right?
That would
by
be
the
your
time
hope.
they're actually by the time they're making a book, and I'm assuming that they're like, I'm going to save time, and I'm going to just, you know, it really, to me, it's irrelevant. What matters is that to me, when I did my book, and I make everything. I don't. If I use anything 3D, I make everything. Okay. I want the viewer, I want the reader to look at the book and go, "There's passion in this book." Right. If you don't have that, then the approach, whatever approach you did use, didn't work. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that the reader's going to kind of
get that.
Yeah, that's my bottom line.
It's kind of got to be like when you're doing the stuff. It's got to be similar to, like that line from Fight Club, right? Like a butterfly couldn't find my work or whatever, right? Where he talks about throwing in the the Wang in the film, right? Nobody sees it, but it's like it's there. The idea behind it is you're gonna throw 3D assets into something. You got to make it so that it looks part of the art. So that you couldn't tell in the first place. And that's kind of like what's the great, aspect of it. Now there is some things that artists just can't conceptualize. Like the reason I use certain reference pieces in 3D, I make my own 3D assets is because I couldn't translate the idea via words, and I couldn't draw it. The idea is too complex for 2D. There's too many elements that have depth to it, or that could just easily screw up. I could be like, I want a bug on a stick, and it might not look like it's in my head. And they may not be able to draw it anyways. Or there are too many like rigid, hard surface elements like clockwork. Sure, you can draw it, but do you want the artist to spend like 6 days drawing the image? Right. Or they want to knock it out in like a couple hours or like 4 hours at most.
Well, I got some stuff from Whiskey I'm going to show off right quick. Let me, Nefa's like, it's like, yes, it is right. No, we can't. We can't assume that all artists working in comics right now know how to draw a couch, or at least know how to stage it in the panel so it looks correct. Well, that's true. Well, I mean, right now, that's the current state of comics. Filmation used live action models for action scenes, film. Then artists would color the frames corresponding to other cells of the animation. Right. Go ahead. Go ahead, Shadowpunk.
Here's a good example. Remember the Lord of the Rings cartoon with where it looked like it was live action? Yeah. Okay, not everybody bought that.
Rankin Bass.
Right? Yeah, not everybody.
You mean rotoscope? The rotoscope?
Yeah, the rotoscope. Yeah, not everybody said I love that style.
Okay,
right? But a lot of people did, and there's probably a lot of people that said that looks like total shit. That looks like a tracing frame per frame, right? And so that they're turned off by that.
Yeah,
and that's valid in my mind. If you don't like it, then you don't like it. And you spot what you don't like, right. And so in my mind, that's up to the people that watch it to decide.
All right. Well, let's show this right quick. So this is Mr. Whiskey. This is the
those are cool.
This is just work that I've done for reference art for the comic I'm working on, Driftwood. And then totally. a series of images, like using them in Clip Studio, so that to sort of show what you can do with it. So in the first ones you saw, that they were just like essentially I don't know, mannequins set up with different 3D elements. Those are just I'm using as reference points. That's one way that you can use it.
Yeah.
So if you go like you can just essentially do a layout design fairly quickly that way. Some people can do it by, drawing it by hand, doing like, thumbnails and stuff like that. But for me, that gives me a much more intricate idea of how to, conceptualize the stuff. The wagon's a 3D asset. The staff there's a 3D asset. The characters, you can see them. None of that stuff actually reached the comic as a 3D asset. And nothing was traced. It was all redrawn for that particular panel. But the reference point and the I don't know, the depth, the all of it was essentially just like a really good drawing aid for that for the artist to knock something out good,
right?
Do something.
So
great.
The upside of doing it that way is that you will have things in proportion to whatever you staged. Right, it'll look. It won't look like a photo, but it'll look closer, and nothing will be off. Right.
Exactly.
But and the downside is that when people do just out of their imagination, there's all these tiny little flaws all over the place, and that's a cool thing. That's a really exciting thing. And I think that when people look at traditional comic book artwork, that's one thing. Even if they don't know that that's what it is. Even if they don't know that Jack Kirby made all the shit up, every panel, the buildings are just boxes with squares and the windows, that has a different kind of life to it. And, where is the line? The line is where the reader says, I love that, or I hate it.
Right.
And, at one point, I mean, I guess it's, if I believed that using 3D assets was going to really damage the indie comic scene, I would sort of understand what someone like Ethan is saying. I would go, that does make sense. And maybe he actually is correct. Maybe he's seen it over the trends over the years. He's like, this never works out, kind of a deal. Maybe that's accurate, but I have not seen that, and, you can even put this
the thing. But the thing that I want to point out is that there are people within Ethan's circle who I have seen use assets like that in a very similar way and with a lot of similar results, and yet he has pushed those books. And so, I mean, and he was pushing Eric July stuff, which is like the big bone of contention. He was pushing his stuff.
Who is this?
You need to get this. You need to get this. You need to get this. And suddenly it's like, well, all these flaws, he's pointing out all these flaws. And it's like, well, dude, these flaws have always been there, and now this is becoming an issue now that you're no longer friends and now that you're, butting heads. And this is a pattern with him. So let's just move on from anything EVS says, because this could just be sour grapes because he just pushed stuff in the past that's been subpar.
Oh, I see.
But he's pushed stuff in the past that's been subpar, and then immediately like PTP stuff. PTP's always been subpar. I mean, but I've gotten 3 books off of Ethan's recommendations off of PTP, and I was like, this is horrible. Why in the world is Ethan pushing this stuff? And now it's like, oh, look how horrible this stuff is. And I'm like, it's always been horrible, man. Right. But he was being good. He was your buddy. And so you were fine with it. And so this is just immorta. This is just like, if he would be like straight up and down with this stuff to start with, and I would have more respect for it. But
that's a good point.
This has always been the case.
I got something here that might be interesting. We talked earlier about Wally Wood, right? So looking through the internet, I actually found something where Wally Wood was cutting and pasted. Now, it's not exactly, something like Rockwell would do with like the projector, but it does goes to show you where you can use it, right? And where they can save time and stuff. So let me just throw that up. And as you can see here.
Let me give you this. Hold up. There you go. You got the calm, my friend.
Here. So as you can see here, they've pasted essentially cut out the name and then pasted it on because they didn't have to redraw it every single time. Now with digital stuff, this is just titles and things. We do stuff like this all the time, but this thing has tape all over it. Like, it just looks in current standards, it looks terrible, right? Like, I mean, the art is great, but this looks awful. But this is what they did back in the day. The printer wouldn't pick this up. It would just come through clean and you would get a decent page, right?
Yeah.
So they were capable of doing all of this stuff by hand, but what was the point? Right? They didn't need to.
Right.
You're talking about the lettering and the logo and whatnot?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody's ever talking about that stuff.
No, I mean, this is the only example I could find.
Yeah, I mean, like for that, look at that photo. Okay, that almost looks like a photo, right? The lighting is if it isn't fake, if it isn't off an actual photo, it's meant to look like it is one because the lighting is dark and it's got that kind of like real subtlety to it, right? And by the way, that is an awesome cover. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, Wally Wood was a master of the trade, but he also did use he also did trace occasionally. They all did. All the EC guys did. Everybody did. It just depends on the use case, right? Sometimes you couldn't get it. Sometimes you could draw something all day and you wouldn't get it, and sometimes you trace. That's just nature of the industry. People use photo reference all the time.
I think, for example, let's just say you had covers like this for 10 years where they were quasi looking real, right? I think when you pull out a Kirby cover, that would explode like nothing, right? That would be awesome. And then after 10 years of that, people are like, I want something grittier. I want something more real. Yeah. And then they show you something like this again, and you're like, that's awesome. It's like, it really is like one of those things. I mean, they're both equally valid in their way. And it all comes down to how well you do it. Yeah.
The end result.
Okay, I got to get caught up on the chat over here, guys. We'll hold that thought. All right. Got some tomes being written over here. Let me get in here. Using body models for reference is also pretty common. These posable models give you anatomical proportion. It's possible to trace the shapes, then draw the details over top. You still have to get the perspective of the details right. And it's not a simple photorealistic reproduction of images. See Whiskey using models as reference for proportion and staging. He's not going to literally trace the 3D posable models of the finished product. It would look janky and stilted. You have to actually draw something on these models, like Rockwell. We're talking about Rockwell.
Right.
Using 3D assets is not going to damage anything. People are shitting on Rip because it's artists for tracing 3D assets in every poorly detailed panel, right? And Ultrastar was a huge letdown. Agreed. Time Prophet, my favorite troll has showed up. I've been working on a 3D asset for the last 2 hours. Not gonna ask details. That's you never ask details with him. Okay. Yeah. All right. And Crumb has showed my favorite marketing genius. You guys are talking earnestly about 3D, and I keep reading Two-Fisted Tales and giggling to myself. I might be a moron. No, Two-Fisted Manly Tales. There you go. It is what
Not
it is.
To be
man.
confused with One-Fisted Tale.
Right. And everybody's saying, hey. Okay. All right. So I think the contention that you know, the bottom line is 3D assets are not the end phenomenon. If you're using them as the end phenomenon, which is, I think it's a problem people had with Ripa stuff, EVS notwithstanding, but a lot of people were talking about this long before EVS fell out with Eric July, and suddenly his stuff was not up to par, which happens a lot. But the thing about it is, though, is when it comes to, you know, I mean, I see stuff all the time. Most of the problems I see with Comicsgate, usually the art is very solid. It's the storytelling and the writing that's bad, and in some cases really bad, and from 6-figure books. Okay, but you know, that's neither here nor there. But when it comes to the art, you know, this community is basically art fetishist community. Okay, basically, yeah. I mean, you know, they're like, I don't care what the stories. I've had people actually say, I don't care if the story, I don't care about the characters. I want the art's as long as the art's there. I've had people say that, you know.
I believe it.
And I'm like, oh, okay, well, you're in the right space. You know, you're in the right place, man.
Well, it's not. It's not Novelgate, is it?
No, it's not. It's not.
Oh, there.
But the thing about it is. But you denigrate the art form when you have that attitude. You know, get a picture book. Get a fucking picture book. This is a hybrid art form, storytelling and art in the most perfect marriage possible. Okay, this is like the purest storytelling art form we have, and so when you just like you, but when it comes to what my point is, though, is this is all part of storytelling. The visual part is part of the storytelling, okay? And so and you're stacking images and the words, but you know, the images are actually part of the storytelling, or part of the writing. And so it's like our friend Aaron Jordan has been called by several artists that have worked with him like one of the best panel builders that they know, because he writes the story with the panels as well as the dialogue, which is something I'm struggling with myself. But you can see, I mean, you know, we've got a writer in the community who really writes incredible panels, and all these comics have incredible panels, but you know, the dialogue and the storytelling sucks. But he writes a great panel. But when it comes to 3D assets, if you make the 3D asset kind of like the end phenomenon in this panel, then you're failing in your responsibility as a storyteller. Now, if you're using it as some way to meet a deadline, but you just like, okay, I don't want to draw all these buildings from scratch, you know. Maybe there's a 3D model I can use to get the right perspective on these skyscrapers. But at the foreground, you're drawing this incredible scene that's going on, or this fight that's going on, or this, you know. I mean, one thing that Bancroft draws the best architecture of anybody maybe I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I don't know how he does it, but I don't know if he uses photos to do it, but
I would guess there's no way he makes it all up. And by the way, if he did, I would say dude, there's got to be a faster way, right? Because I mean, that would be great. It does look gorgeous. And by the way he does it, if the line work in his figures match really nice into the details into the architecture. And you don't even register that's happening, but it feels cohesive, right? And it's a nice style.
Right. Yeah. Time Prophet. Let's get his what he says in here. The Rabbit Hole Clip Studio is software for making comics, has 3D built into it. Yeah, perspective tools, a lot, all built in. Right.
Yep.
And 2D cartoons have been using 3D assets for years. Even the 90s Spider-Man cartoon had 3D buildings built into the cartoon. Right. Well, I think 3D point, right? Is a way to, yeah, it's a very excellent point. It's like we were seeing with Mirkwood. Was it Mirkwood? Is the name of your comic?
No,
whiskey?
Driftwood.
I'm sorry, Driftwood.
That's okay.
But with his comic, he has an incredible artist, Russ Leach. I'm correct, right? Russ Leach.
Yeah, Russ Leach is the artist on the project.
Yeah, comic book black belt. Incredible artist, but he is like helping Russ out by showing him like different perspectives and different like angles and different shadows and things like that. But he's using a 3D rendering to do that. But my friend Shadowpunk over here, he took it to a all new level, a level that I haven't seen anybody else do. And for 4.5 years, I think it was.
I mean, let's not encourage that with people, okay?
Yeah, well, I'm just saying. This is part of what's possible. Now, this is just a clip of a longer movie. It's about 9.5 minutes. And it goes along with his comic book hand in hand. Okay. But this is what's possible. And so not to embarrass him, but I just wanted to play this right quick.
Laugh.
Oh no. This time I'm gonna curb you all.
Fine. You want some? Let's do it.
Was that you?
No.
So I'll bring up a good point about after watching that. Okay, so I know Ricochet knows this. So when you are in a 3D environment, you can move the camera around and you can build your own scenes according to angles that you never thought would be interesting. Okay, so for example, a traditional artist, let's just say someone even as dynamic as Neil Adams, okay, who is extremely dynamic, right? He eventually he's going to end up in his career doing 20 different poses, 20 different angles. I'm making that number up, right? And he would never consider. I'm not saying he wouldn't, but generally an artist wouldn't see that angle until you move a camera around and you look. So when I did that thing and you're looking down through the metal ring, and you can see her face from above and you can see the little ticket that says Gill's property, right? You might not consider that until the day where you go, I want to play with it. And so what Prophet said about there being 3D tools in Clip Studio, I mean, it's no matter, even if you don't like it, it's on its way.
Yeah.
And I think the approach is to get artists to go, what what looks great.
Yeah.
How do you take that and make something great? I don't really care how you did it. What's important is that the reader says that is really fun. I want more of that. And I think that's the bottom line.
Right, that is the bottom line. Okay, Vince. There we go. All right. Not sure what that was about, but hey, no big deal. Stylized 3D, I don't like. You should check out Resident Evil series if you want to see good 3D. And you got to be like a director, right? Resident Evil Infinite Darkness has excellent 3D animation. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Well, you know, it's like when John Lasseter was in charge of Pixar, those movies were imbued with the humanity. They were imbued with a playfulness and a childlike wonder. And there's multiple times when I watched the Pixar movie that it got me. I mean, it got me. And I mean, you cannot, if you can watch the opening montage of Up, where he has his whole entire marriage, like in that opening montage. If you can watch that and not be bawling at the end of it, I think you might be a psychopath. Okay. But that's an example. Or you haven't seen it?
It's so long ago, right?
Okay. Well, anyway, but yeah, or you know, Bing Bong sacrificing himself in Inside Out or something like that. You know, there's just moments where just absolutely gut-wrenching moments, but it's done with 3D animation, okay? But he understood that 3D animation is where you start, but you've got to infuse it with something. It's got to have life to it, right? And this is like what's next, okay? This is coming, guys. It's on its way, and it's pretty much here. And the idea that you can, reject it and walk away from it, or like shame people into not using it, well, that's not. It's not the way we should be. Even like, it's not the way we should be, like, operating, because we need to embrace this stuff. One advantage that independent has over corporate is that independent can embrace new technologies and new ways of doing things before corporate gets around to it, because corporate might take years to get to the same place. Independent's like, oh, that's new, let me try this. So we can do that they can't do.
I had a
go
thought.
ahead.
Yeah, so like you got your average student of the arts, and he's studying anatomy and art and musculature and all that stuff, and throws up an image, and it's like you're seeing the inside of a human being and what muscles they have and how they contract, as opposed to figure drawing to figure out what's behind the surface so they can get a better idea. Most of that stuff isn't a cadaver. They're not, they haven't stripped the skin off somebody in the morgue and been like, oh, okay, well, there we go. It's an image usually generated by 3D, obviously. And before that, it might have been cadavers, people studying the stuff and drawing. They might have got it somewhat inaccurate, but through technology over the years, they've developed a more accurate kind of medical drawings, and they do use 3D. It's unquestionable they use 3D because they need to know the exact dimension of something. They need to know how the bone structure works. They need to know how the different muscles of the face and so on and so forth. So it's undeniable, but like it's kind of goes back to the argument in a sense of like you're not like, yeah, you can do figure drawing, but if you really want to know what's going on under the surface, you got to use 3D elements, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
well, yeah. Let me get caught up right over here, right quick. Pixar never beat the dancing lamps. Okay. Not sure what you're referring to there. Actually met the guy who worked out the mathematics for the lamps that Pixar created. There was no 3D software at first. Oh, okay. Still not sure what that is. While that's true, indie has flexibility. There's also a double-edged blade. It's easy to embrace tech that will die. then you've dumped a lot of time, energy, money. Discretion's always needed. Right. And if you watch enough Disney movies, you see they trace the same movies for different movies. Yeah.
What Kron said is correct.
Go ahead. Sorry.
But that process has to happen.
Yeah.
Right? You have to be literally try. You have to try different techniques. And if, for example, I'll give you a good one. At one point, Jack Kirby used photo artwork.
Okay.
Like he would draw stuff, but then he would put chopped up photos inside the picture, and he did it with Fantastic Four. And I remember going, "That looks stupid," right? I mean, at some point, you got to just try stuff, just experiment, and by experimenting, you find things you never would have figured out. But that's the process. It's not a streamlined thing where you are efficient forever. I'm not saying that's what Kron thinks at all, but I'm just saying generally, you do have to waste time. You do, because otherwise it doesn't work any other way.
Well, one thing about the independent spirit is that the independent spirit has to always look for the edge, because the corporations can be lazy. The corporations can put out crap, and and they can just use their marketing to like shove it down people's throats and tell them that this is all there is and this is what you can expect, and you just settle for this. This is product, consume product, and wait for more product, And but with independent, we're constantly like yelling into space and trying to get people to watch or to look, and so like something that's absolutely new or something that people haven't seen before can give you that. And so independents can definitely like lean into that. Or what do you go ahead, Whiskey? Go ahead.
So I had a thought. I think a lot of people are misconstrued, or like what they're upset about so much is that they think there isn't any skill or difficulty involved in using 3D assets. Now, if you're just in the defense of EVS's statement or Uncle E's statement, dropping in a pre-done asset that you didn't give the credit to the artist to, like off a SketchUp, and then just putting a filter on top of it or tracing it, that's a little bit insulting. Yes, that doesn't take a lot of skill. Pretty much anybody that can draw 2D art can do that. It's not too much.
He is absolutely right. Don't get me wrong. He is absolutely right. It's his timing that I question.
Yeah.
Okay. It's the timing that this has always been the case. And that's what I'm saying is okay. If this was the way it was, it's always been that way. Why is it a problem now?
So
now that you've had to follow out. If this was always the case, then why didn't you bring this up earlier? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, so if I might finish though, the way that and it's sort of like what bothers me about the whole situation is that 3D art is actually really time consuming. So it's not if you're doing it all from scratch yourself, it's not a time saver at all. It's actually makes the project a lot longer, because you have to design all the elements in 3D, and none of that is quick. If you're reusing the assets, maybe over time, yes. Maybe if you were dropping in like a particular building or a scene and you had to do 10 pages in one small area, or like a city or something, yes, I could see that it could save you some time, but it really not. If every individual part that you're referencing, and I dare say even tracing in some aspects, because you can get some benefit out of that, for like backdrops, static objects, swords, and so on and so forth. There's nothing wrong with that. But like, if you're doing that route, that will add a lot more time to your work because it just takes longer in 3D.
It does.
Well,
the thing is, I think people are upset about is that it's sort of similar to the AI argument. They don't think it takes any skill at all. Now, I understand for that particular thing with the couches and stuff like that for Eric's work is that might not take any skill, or very minimal skill, and maybe that's what people are upset about. But I think it's what it triggers. I think it triggers the same sort of frustration with AI that people are just putting in prompts.
Well, AI is a different animal, and I think they're being misconstrued as one and the same. But 3D assets is an art form like any other art form. That little one clip that we watched, that might have took Mr. Shadowpunk over here for several months, because it took him 4 years to make this thing. 9 minutes of an animation, it took him 4 years. He even had to replace voice model because one of them passed away in the intervening time. So, I mean, that shows that was just one guy working on his computer and his own software. But you can see, way things are rushed these days with some of the animation. Like I watched The Flash, and it was god awful animation. And so it still takes time. It still takes technique. It still takes a lot of knowledge. AI is in its infancy. Okay. I'm not like Shadiversity here thinking that you can throw IR out there and it's just going to be as good as anything drawn, which is what he's preaching right now. Dumbass. But anyway, so that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about AI art.
Let me make a point. Can I make a point about the AI? Okay. Hypothetically, you could make an entire comic book out of AI, correct? Right? Yeah. You could an entire comic.
So hypothetically, yeah.
So I think that the way it would work is that the readers first will go, "Wow, that's pretty cool," and then within time they will go, "I see it now. I see it. It has its own isms to it, and I don't like them because there's no life to it, and I'm done. I'm done with AI.
There's no life to it, no.
And that's the thing. You can't. No. So and what EVS is talking about is, because his comics do have this quality. They are well designed, really illustrated well, and he's saying that's better than, say, the Eisen book, which it is. I mean, it is. To me, the problem with the Eisen book, there are parts about the artwork I actually liked. I was like, that's pretty cool right there. This is pretty neat. It was the writing.
The writing.
And if the story has purpose and it's going correctly, and when he did the review of the book, he was correct. Okay. Mm-hmm. I mean,
oh yeah, he was absolutely correct. I mean, he is right about everything he says. He is absolutely right. I mean, he is the best when EVS breaks anything down, and it's absolutely dead on. He is very, very good.
To your point, though, A, you called that a long time ago. B, you like you said in the beginning of the show, EVS pushed the book.
Yeah, he did.
So now you're wondering,
and these things were true then. Why are they now true then?
Right. So how does it really work then? It's cool if I want it to be cool, and it's not cool if I don't like it, right? If I decide one day I don't want it to be, is that how it is? I don't know, I mean, maybe he can say I didn't see the book, I didn't read it, until it came out.
Oh, exactly. Let me go ahead. Crom is agreeing with you 100%. I'm more concerned with people doing it with or no reason, but I'm also process loving wiener. Okay. There you go. There's a lot of skill to 3D assets. That's why my videos take so long to do a 50-second animation. It's taking me about 3 months to complete. Of course, this includes building and texturing models. Right. The best comics are carved on cuneiforms. 3D text and lighting can take as long as building the models. Right. There you go. Cuneiform. Okay, he's way back.
That's fundamentals you can possibly get.
Well, the first comics were cave paintings, so that's even farther back than cuneiform. So there you go.
That's true.
I predate you, dude. Anyway.
Right.
All right. So anyway, you got a friend over here. What's up, Shadowpunk? What's the word on the second part of the book?
I'm writing the book right now, and I'm gonna start doing commissions for the 3D figures. They saw my pit one, so they're like, I want you to do one for me. So I need to make money, right? So between making the book and I'm gonna do also these, but the book is being written right now, and it's cool, it's fun. I know you know this, but it's fun to write a book and go, whoa, this is gonna be cool, kind of a thing, and changing stuff around to really make it work really well, you know?
Right.
So Yep.
Well, you definitely you'll be able to get this first book eventually when he does his second chance. Which you are going to do a second chance. This is not a debate. You are going to do a second chance, okay?
Well,
all right. Anyway,
no.
Don't equivocate. You are going to do a second chance on that book.
I'm equivocating a little bit. I am equivocating a little bit. All right.
So it's already done. All you have to do is print some more copies of it. Come on now. Anyway, what were you saying, Whiskey?
So I had this saying I said a while ago, is that because like people do need 3D art in the art world. Like we get, like you mentioned, commissions for like statues, action figures, all that kind of stuff. That's the kind of work I do as well. But like basically people like to sort of knock 3D artists in the 2D world, which I've found out. There's this like sort of almost distaste from 2D artists. They don't respect it by and large, until they need us. And when they do need us, it flips the story on the head, and they like they kind of suck up because like they're not going to be able to get, you know, action figures 3D models from absolutely anybody else, right?
Are you saying that we're perceived as the plumbers of CG?
More or less, yeah. Like they like up until the point where you actually need a 3D artist, they don't respect it. And I've done polls on that subject, enough information just to say that it's in some ways it's almost like the argument between people using digital 2D art and traditionalists. Like you get the Puritans that will not touch a tablet whatsoever. Then you get hybrids that do both. You know, Russ Leach does that. He does digital pencils, traditional inks because he likes traditional inks. And there's people like Luke Stone who just do all digital. It's here or there. But the perception is that basically they don't like us until they need us. So,
well, you know, I've gotten my perception has been a little bit different. I think that people don't really grasp how much time it goes into, say, making like a figurine or something, right? Like a figure type thing. I mean, which is fair. I mean, why would they know, right? I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, if you're spending a solid week around the clock making a figure, it's all handmade, right? It's not like I scanned it. It's not like I use a photo and I scanned it and somehow made a figure out of it, which, by the way, is going to come, by the way. You know, I've gotten a pretty good response from posting my figures. I think people see the life in the work, and that's been but I don't think that people want. It's hard to tell. Hard to tell what people think. So, all right.
I think you're right though about the perception of them thinking it's like easy, and I think that comes from a lot of people that just sort of dabble in 3D art or see it being done, because you can make a really simple shape very quickly in 3D, right? You can make a cup in like, 15, 20 seconds. You can make a cup. It looks like a cup. It's a cup, right? Visually. Drawing that might make a little bit more effort. So they kind of like equate like the really layman kind of view in some cases, where sometimes they think it's really easy to do. Yeah. But if you're combining like, I use probably ZBrush, 600 different subtools together, and each one is meticulously crafted, and you're laying it out and posing a model, and you have to move every 600 individual piece. That takes a lot of time, right? You're not just, it's difficult. Like, yeah, you can pose stuff in software, right? But it looks stiff. Doing like hand sculpted work, doing the musculature moves. So you have to like figure out how that muscle stretches and contracts, you're not just letting it's not animated. It's if you're doing a proper figure work, it's especially static figure work for like action figure statues, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you're doing it by hand.
For me, I'll just say this, 'cause I know this isn't what the stream is about, but I'll just say it real quick. For me, the challenge is to get the normal person to look at what you've done and go, kind of like Van Halen making a song, right? You don't know what they went through to make the song, but you don't really give a shit when you turn the thing on. You go, wow, this is awesome.
Right.
And that's all that matters.
You're talking about the end product, the end phenomenon, right?
I kind of want people to not know. I mean, I want the professionals to go, okay, I understand why it takes a lot for this guy to do what he's doing. But I use my box too. But I like the layman going. I don't know how you did that, and I don't know how much time it took, but it got me the second I looked at it. Right, that's the goal, and it's hard to do.
Well, I need to say this right quick, Mr. Curious Comics. You are actually a fan. You're already a fan of 3D assets. You just don't realize it because you have the wrong idea of what 3D assets are. 3D assets are essentially anything that is used in modeling to draw off of that's in 3 dimensions, which has been used for decades. So a 3D asset is like Norman Rockwell used 3D assets. Okay. Jack Kirby, all of them have used 3D assets. Now, the only difference is that now the 3D assets are on computer. And but it's essentially the same process that's always been using models to draw off of, or using actual objects in real life to draw off of. People going to a park and sketching a tree that they're looking at. That's a 3D asset. Okay.
Can I bring up and make a point?
Go ahead. Please do. That's why you're here.
This is a good. Okay, around the Renaissance in the 1400s, maybe early 1500s, all the artwork went from flat, kind of odd-looking perspective to photo, what you might even consider like more Leonardo da Vinci-esque. Okay, and the reason why that happened was because they invented lenses. They poked a hole in the wall. The sun came through, and sun blasted on the wall, and they said, "Oh wow, you can see the image." Right. So everything changed, and so that was a big paradigm shift where everything all of a sudden looked completely different. And it wasn't just that people learned how to do 3-point perspective; it's because they were using the technology to change art.
Yeah. If I also have a point on that too, talking about the old masters, is that
there is a documentary you need to look at. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
So you can circle back to that. So back in the day, like all the old masters and stuff like that, we talk about we talked earlier about anatomy and stuff and how that translates to 2D art. All these guys used to do sculpture, like all the old masters used to do sculpture because it was a cheap and easy medium. Clay, it was cheaper in a sense just to get clay, which is essentially mud and water, to make something than it would be to get parchment and charcoal. So all the old masters back in the day, they studied sculpture as part of an aspect of art. You couldn't train with somebody without essentially understanding sculpture. And to this day, it's actually people that study sculpture. I'm a traditionalist in that sense. Some people don't get that point, but it's like I studied sculpture before I got into 3D. I almost did 2D. I'm not the best 2D artist in the world because I'm out of practice, but I still did it. So what they used to do is they used to study the planes of the face, and they used to study how the physical structure of things work. When you come across an artist that can do all of those aspects, sculpture, like physical sculpture and 2D art, usually their 2D art is far better than most just people that just do observation is because there's a tactile experience that they pick up from doing 3D art, if you will, sculpture work, because they can run their hands over the model and see the depth, not just visually, but they can internalize it physically. And 2D art is, or drawing something is a physical representation of what you're seeing visually.
Well, there's a documentary that was in 2013. It's called Tim's Vermeer. And it was about he's actually a polymath. He's a genius that he's friends with, what is the name of, hold on a second. Penn Jillette from Penn and Teller.
I saw it, yeah.
And okay, and so he had this belief that the Vermeer used an apparatus that allowed him to basically draw or color with a direct projected image onto a canvas.
That's right.
And so he created this apparatus that he thought Vermeer would have access to, use the exact paints that Vermeer would add at that time, and built an exact replica of a room that he would probably have been in to paint. And he reproduced a Vermeer, and every expert that looked at it said, "Oh my God, I think you're right," because he noticed that on the edges of the images there was a aberration that only happens with lenses,
right?
And so he basically painted his own Vermeer. But the thing about it is, it wasn't cheating, because it took him months and years to do this, like 3 years, I think, to do it. And it took him like painstaking, careful dabbling every day, and took so much effort to do it that he's like, but he was able to reproduce Vermeer quality of it. Looked almost exactly like a Vermeer, and a lot of the experts were just blown away by it.
I saw that. So, that was quite detective work.
Oh yeah, and it's just off of a theory, because there's never been established how Vermeer did some of the things he did. But there was a step up when Vermeer came onto the scene. There was a step up, and people were like, because it's photorealistic, it literally looks like a photo, and it has some aberrations in it that only like photos would have. And so.
Well,
that whole entire that
the point to your story, though, is that without him doing that, style becomes stagnant.
Right.
And even if people decided
exactly.
that we hate the Vermeers, let's say they hated it, right?
Right.
At least you would know. Somebody would walk by and go, "I don't like the status quo. That's the wrong direction. I'm going to do this now," and that will become the thing that people like. Right. So there's without that process happening, experimental process.
Well, his point was right.
Go ahead.
Well, his point was that Vermeer still had the eye. He still composed it.
Right.
He still had. He still caught the light perfectly, and he had to like paint the same time every day to get the light on every object the same way.
Right. Right.
Because he didn't have artificial light, he would have had to use sunlight. So it would have been like a incredible undertaking just to paint one of the things, and he painted multiple paintings that way. So he was probably a cripple by the time he was done with his. But that point being made, he still had to have the image in his head. He still had to compose it, and he still had to pose it, and he still had to take the time to do it. So it still took a ton of effort, but the end result was like a level up. But we're talking about just relentless innovation and determination. And so he still had to do the thing. He still had to create the work.
We're talking about the status quo, right? So
right.
one of the things about this whole Comicsgate Civil War, or if you will, I don't even know if Eric actually even qualifies as Comicsgate, but it doesn't matter. People are going to what I find interesting about it is people are forming their opinions, and this has been a thing, contentious point with me, with YouTubers and influencers for a long time, is that people form the opinions of the YouTuber and not themselves. They often pair what the YouTuber thinks.
Oh,
it doesn't matter what it is. Not necessarily.
You're exaggerating.
No, I'm not.
Oh my gosh.
But people will they'll just go along with the flow of it and say exactly what the YouTuber says or what they want. I didn't realize you're being sarcastic at first, but yeah, that's the point.
He is always so sarcastic.
I am not.
I get it now, but yeah, essentially, it can get pretty bad with tribalism in that way, and I was a little while ago, I was centering around some controversy, some people fighting me because I had encountered something where people were parroting, I guess, CVS about one thing, and I liked a different YouTuber, and they're like, "Oh, you don't like this individual because whatever." I'm like, it's just like what the hell, man? I'm just watching entertainment here.
I mean,
so it just
right. Well, I mean, that's the thing. That's the thing, you know. Me even saying what I said earlier is probably going to have some people that trying to cancel me, but I don't care. You know, I mean, he's not God. I have a God, and he's not it. So, you know, and neither is Eric July. I have my problems with Eric July.
So you know, here's the thing about EVS though. Okay, he has. Like when he reviewed the Eisen books, you could tell he knew what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't think that he should be the arbiter of what goes on in CG. Okay. I think that's kind of I don't agree with that. And I don't agree with criticizing other artists. I personally don't like doing that. Okay. But he when he went
well, how are they going to know that they're doing good or how do they know if they're doing good or not?
No, not that kind of
if critique. They don't get feedback.
No, feedback is good. I'm saying to pick on.
Oh, you're talking criticism. You're talking criticism. Okay.
I'm talking about intentional picking on other artists instead of going, I like his work. Because he even said this too. He said, sometimes I will do it this way. I will say, I like this part about your book. And I encourage them to do better in other areas. That's what he said. And he's right about that. You know, but but if his critiques of the story alone were accurate, and it's why I couldn't finish reading the book. I was I can't do that. I know that or I know that that it's way ahead of time, but I was like,
yeah, it's not like I've been preaching that for 4 years or anything.
No, and part of me wonders. Can I go out on a limb here? Can I go out on a kooky, crazy limb? Okay? Because let's be honest, better people have made better books that have made a lot less money than Isom. Okay? So how did he make that much money? Was it all his being Mr. YouTuber? Is that the only factor? I don't know if that's accurate. And I'm not saying it isn't. But it makes me wonder what the hell is actually going on.
Well, there was a huge drop off. About 500,000 per. So.
Okay. So
anyway, let me go ahead and get these comments in.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, you want? Okay. Well, we can
go ahead. Go ahead, Whiskey.
So. About critiques, a little while ago, I was chilling on the Todd McFarlane forum, Discord, and I was mentioning Alex Toth, right? Stuff about him. I made a comment earlier on Twitter about mediocrity. People that give you or give you praise for mediocrity will hinder you more than somebody tearing apart your work.
Sure.
and I made a comment about that thing. I put it up on the Todd McFarlane Discord, and given that Discord is mostly left leaning, like they wanted me banned right away. Like 300 people were like, ban him now, ban him now. And I'm like, I just brought up stories about Alex Toth and different artists critiquing other people's work and how that they tore them apart and how they were curmudgeon-y back in the day. And, and used reason against their banning me logic because they didn't break any of the rules. So they had no grounds to ban me. Just the fact that it was against their opinion. A lot of common artists nowadays, they can't take critique. They want it in a very specific way. And I often get in trouble because I'll critique other 3D artists I see in the wild. I'll make a comment and they get mad. And I think a lot of the times it's not simply because I'm being mean, because I'm always civil. Like when I usually make a comment, unless I'm intentionally being an asshole, and that's only if somebody's being, a jerk to me. That's the only time I get that way. But if I'm being like civil and respectful, the comment is always neutral. And I think a lot of the perception nowadays is that it's bad taste to critique something unless they ask for it. And I don't necessarily believe that.
But nobody asked for it. Nobody asked for it.
No, I'll give you a good. Let me give you a good example. I'll give you a good example. So a week ago, maybe longer, I put up a poll on my channel. I made a Cyber Frog poster and I made an Isom poster, and because of all the hubbub, right? So I said, two cool books, two cool artists. Which poster is better and why? Right? I actually asked people what their opinion was. Right, which is totally different than
Cyber Frog was really good.
Thank you. So people had their opinions big time, and
of course,
they were actually pretty good opinions. They criticized what I did, and I said, that I can sort of see what you're saying. I mean, some of it was apples and oranges, some of it was good criticism, right? And then I realized some people were looking at it.
Well, I used the word critique. I use the word critique. I think critique is different from criticism.
Yes.
And you can always tell the difference. Criticism is just like, you're a poo-poo head and you should never create again. And critique is like, okay, this is good, but this could be better.
That's an excellent point.
So there's definitely a difference there. Well, let me go ahead and get through these. Answer this question for he's want to know, do you rig your character models? Do you rig in 3D?
Only a psychopath who does 3D like myself would actually ask that question. Technical problem. So I used I rigged it up in their cat models, and then I used Motion Builder to actually animate them. So you guys don't know what that means, but he does.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's a little inside baseball there. Okay. This is what I'm referring to as 3D assets as copy, paste, stretch. 3D assets mean more than just that, but just in particular what I don't like. Thank you for clarifying that. I'm sorry if I jumped. It seemed like I was jumping on you.
You
I was
bastard.
just trying to make a point there. I know I'm horrible. I'm horrible.
Horrible person.
Horrible. I know. Objects in the mirror may be closer than they appear. Right.
That is an excellent thing to say right there. Right there, that's excellent what he just said, because he's telling you that people have been looking through lenses and through mirrors for a long time, things that look different than reality, right?
Yeah, and there's aberrations in mirrors that could only happen in a lens, which is what that guy pointed out. If you haven't seen it, it's called Tim's Vermeer. It was made in 2013. It was produced by Penn Jillette. It's worth a watch. It really changed my mind about art, what really constitutes as art. These sculptor bros really draw good in black and white. Yeah, they do. They do. Okay, that is a Meatloaf song. Yep. Yeah, I'm aware. No, I won't do that. Yep. So anything we do for love, great. Okay, we went meatloaf there, evidently. Okay. Status quo, I've seen it live many times. It's not what we're referring to, but okay. Yeah, I appreciate a thumbs up and the like and a subscribe if you like the content. Yeah, but I think you guys are cool. Thank you, Coco. You go, Papa Shango. You're the coolest, man. Don't be an NPC. Right. I have no God, so you can't cancel me. That's fine. I do have a God, though. Anyway, it's not EVS or Air July. Okay. All right. I say it when it comes to right wingers and Comicsgate. We have our own opinions. Sorry, I thought I was showing it. Okay. There it is. All right. I say it when it comes to right wingers, Comicsgate. We all have our own opinions. That's why we're hated by those who follow the norm. I'm big Trump supporter, but I don't agree with or side with him all. No, and you shouldn't. You really shouldn't. Crum, my friend, Crum. But you already said, Shadow, people are investing in cult of personality. It's hard to know for sure without having the data. Correct. All right. I'm on Discord, but I don't mean either way. Right. He's on the Discord. Okay. You can critique my 3D. I don't care. LOL. Gotcha. All right. You come off as a level-headed dude. All right. Not sure who he's referring to, but I think he's talking to you, Whiskey. If you're a creator and you can't take criticism, then you will not know what you really have. Criticism helps you grow, both negative and positive. And like I said, a negative critique sometimes is more helpful than positive critique, because if somebody hates your guts, they're going to be looking for your weak spots, and so they're going to point out stuff that you won't, that somebody who actually cares about you won't point out, and that's always beneficial.
If they're honest, if they care about you and they're honest, they will put it up. But we got this current perception nowadays of these kid clubs where everything has to be positive. You can't. It's weird. I think it comes a lot from like the ideological drive of the left being sort of present in art and the arts,
right,
and becoming the norm through Discord moderation and like moderators and stuff like that, where any negativity is considered evil and bad and a bannable offense, which I encountered with the Tar McFarlane thing. But if you really cared about another artist and you noticed they were doing something that could be improved on, and they're not doing it, and they continue to ignore that particular aspect, it's helpful for you to point it out. Now, you can do it in a civil way. Like, it's just unfortunate that people nowadays, because of the ideologues, are unable to take criticism, because we're losing our culture in that regard, right?
Some bullying is actually good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's controversial to say it, but you look at Gen X. Reason why Gen X is so mentally tougher than the next generation is because Gen X was kind of left on their own, and it was Lord of the Flies, and we all kind of like we did our own thing, and we kind of like we were thrown in the deep end, and we learned how to swim. And then unfortunately, when Gen X became parents, they coddled the shit out of their next generation. And so that became the millennials, and then millennials, the Gen Z, and it's just been a deterioration ever since. But, when you see Gen X, though, Gen X is, my generation tend to be kind of loner. They tend to be they kind of have their own ideas, and they're pretty, anyway, but yeah, I mean, a little bit of bullying is not a bad thing, because then you have to determine who you are. You have to stand up for yourself, and it creates mental toughness, and mental toughness is something that everybody needs to get out in this world that we're living in. Okay, let me go ahead. I missed this comment earlier. I understand from the jump the Shadowpunk uses 3D. We're not just looking at 3D. We're looking at character design and story. That's what matters most. I some failed at that, in my opinion. Right. Okay. And we'll get a couple more comments, and then we'll head out here. My 3D goes to realism. Once made a car, someone didn't actually know it was 3D. There you go. Once again, participation trophies. We're all winners. And Woke Breaker time. If Woke Breaker shows up, that he's kind of like my fat lady. When Woke Breaker shows up, it's time. Anyway, I'm all for corrective bullying. There you go. Older siblings will check you, right? Older siblings definitely matter. Hell the chat. And that could be part of the problem is the fact, and welcome in, Derek, by the way. Welcome in, man. But that could be part of the problem is a lot of single parents only have one kid, and so they didn't really have siblings. Because I remember, what's that?
And no father, because their dad will check you too, because he'll give you the belt.
Yeah, exactly. Your dad will hurt your feelings. Your mother's like, "Oh no, you're just beautiful. You're wonderful. You're the greatest on the planet." My stepbrother pretty much got that treatment, which is why he was in the basement until we threw him out. Anyway, woo! All right, at over 50 years old, pushing 50. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But the thing about it is, though, bottom line is 3D assets are not a bad thing. Like anything on itself is not a bad thing. It's just another tool in the toolbox. And considering the level of computers and software that's available to everybody these days, it's going to become more and more common to see people use these assets to create. And if you look at Shadowpunk's book, which is he is going to be available sometime this year. I'm going to bully him until it happens. But anyway, but there you go. I'm bullying you now. There you go. But the thing about it is what you do with those assets is the same as anything else. You paint with the brush that you've got, and if the brush that you paint with happens to be 3D, then make the music, man. Make the music that you're capable of. And so now, granted, we can look at the end product and judge the end product, but don't throw the baby out with the bathwater in this case. 3D assets are the way of the future. They're what's next. And so definitely we need to consider putting that in the toolbox if we got it. I think the DM group should be where you get the criticism from your peers and you can release the book with confidence. Oh, yeah. I've got a hell of a DM group, or at least I used to, called Genesis Crew. And we put out some very incredible books before everything went kablooey. Anyway, but that's neither here nor there. All right, so that's been Cooper from Telepathic Bunny Comics. Mr. Shadowpunk, where can we find you, sir?
I'm on Twitter at Shadowpunk Comic.
All right, I've got it in the description below, and I've also got your check out his channel. He's got a lot of his 3D assets on this channel, and does some rotations of 3D, and he also does some animation breakdowns and some coloring tutorials, which is all good. Mr. Whiskey, where can we find you, sir?
Sure, you can find me down at the bottom there at Whiskey. You just type at Bayonet Ricochet into the chat. And something will come up. Something does come up. It might look a little like this if you happen to click on the top of the link and look at my art station, and you can see some of the stuff that I do in 3D. I do action figures, miniatures, all that kind of stuff. You need something made in any style, any way, and any particular kind of thing. Doesn't matter what it is. I like to say I'm the best in the industry, and will prove that fact time and time again. So yeah, send me a message if you need something made.
All righty. Thank you. Yeah. But at the same time, but I speak for both Shadowpunk and Whiskey. These things take time, and the time has to be paid for, and there has to be compensation for the time. And so, even though everything's done on a computer and doesn't take technically physical effort, it takes a whole lot of mental effort, a whole lot of time, a lot of attention to detail, and that's time that they're not being paid for. So the prices are the prices. So don't expect them to work cheaper than a 2D artist, which is that happens frequently. Anyway, a few more. Let me go ahead and get these in here. 3D is actually better than 2D. We'll have to, by the way, check out Time Profits. He has a channel too. He's got some awesome stuff over there. Everyone, please like and subscribe. Thank you, Wookie. All right. I hope you're learning from the Wabbit. GG, good chat, folks. Yeah, check out Crom also. Crom's got a channel. Crom, go ahead. You got a mod. Go ahead, put your channel in the chat. You need to check out Crom's channel. He's a marketing genius. Hoping to have him on my channel pretty frequently. Anyway, why so serious? Now we're going Joker. All right. All right. There's Joker card. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. All right. Anyway, Time Profit. I must do more character 3D work. Okay. All right. Good deal. Yes, you must. Yes, you must. Anyway. The power of Crom compels you. There you go. All right. See you later. All right. Okay. On that note, all right. Let's fill in great taste. Yeah. Okay. It's degenerated. All right. All right. So that's been Cooper from Telepathic Bunny Comics. Remember, check out community service. The link is below. Check out the bunny wear. That is in the also Ironside's t-shirt. That's also in the link below. And I am on Twitter. I am on, and make sure you sub to the rabbit hole and leave a like if you don't mind. If you like this content, there's going to be more of this coming. Anyway, that's been Cooper for Telepathic Bunny Comics. Let me pull up my. All right. See you next rabbit hole. Y'all have a nice day. Follow the White Rabbit.